Hello everybody. So today is a long coming video and people had asked me about it. It is going to be about a palette that I've been testing out for the last 3 months. I am not a huge fan of reviews that are first impressions and look how it works and whatever, and then 3 months later nobody's using that item. But for me, I have shelled out for the Sultry palette by Anastasia Beverly Hills, and for me it was a very thought through purchase. I tend to not buy palettes haphazardly. I always have a purpose with purchasing it, and Anastasia Beverly Hills is not by any means the most expensive brand at Sephora, but it is pricier than most palettes that I would be eyeballing probably, at least in the recent few months. So I wanted to give it a super good go. I know it's possibly a limited edition. It's been very popular, so they might bump it into the permanent range, I hope, but they might not. So I wanted to do a review on this before it completely went out of stock, and in case it's not coming back, because I think it's a worthwhile product. Spoiler alert. So let's discuss the palette itself. As you can see, the packaging is not for everyone. Not my personal favorite, I have to say. I think some people really like the glittery effect. For me, this is it's not feeling too cheap, and the glitter isn't really coming off in chunks, but it is coming off. I don't like glitter coming off on my hands, so this is not my favorite texture, but it is better than the really soft velvety textures that some palettes have, including a lot of the Anastasia palettes, because then the dirt at least is not sticking to this one quite as much. I would have preferred maybe something wipeable, something nice and sleek. This is not sleek. It is glitter, and it is fun looking for sure. I do appreciate it's a nice color tone, and we're matching today with my outfit. So the outside is fine for me. I don't really feel any particular way about it. It's not my aesthetic, but it is Anastasia's aesthetic, and I respect that. So this is the first Anastasia palette that I've ever actually owned. I have never owned Modern Renaissance. I was never really interested in it, simply because, honestly, because of the color selection. I'm not a huge fan of those rusty, really warm tone and red tones that are in that palette. I've eyeballed it multiple times, swatched it, liked the consistency of the shadows, but really became disinterested in the color scheme. There were a few palettes that came out earlier, but I wasn't in need of any palettes, and then they weren't really on shelves anymore, and I wasn't going to track them down, including Mario palette that looked interesting. But when I saw Sultry, I did know that that was probably going to be my first Anastasia palette, because the color selection really spoke to me. I am somebody who likes a very, very functional palette that is not boring, that you can play with and can get a variety of looks out of. And this, believe it or not, is really difficult to achieve. Lots of palettes struggle with being super basic and providing the basics that everybody needs, but then they're super boring and nobody's reaching for them. This guy has all the basics I think anybody could need. But on top of that, the quality of the shimmers is really what takes this palette to a different level. They have some mattes in there that are super, super nice and basic and very blendable. Keep in mind, these shadows are super soft, so if you aren't a fan of fallout and soft shadows, you're gonna hate these if you hate fallout, because there is sometimes some fallout with that, and they're powdery. They're very soft, they're very creamy, but they're very powdery. And these shimmers, particularly in this palette specifically, are quite chunky, reflective, and very, very impactful. So you have to be able to work with a bit of a crumblier shadow, but the effect on the lid is obviously also going to be super cool. So the texture of these is actually something that I very much enjoy, and I think once you figure out how to use them, they're very easy to use. Mattes are very blendable. You have Fresh, which is a skin-toned color for me, but it's a very light beige. Then you have Twig, which is a neutral medium brown. Then you have Dystopian, which is a espresso dark brown. You have Bloom, which is a peachy orange color that isn't quite orange. It's on the peachier side. There's a touch of pink in there, and this is your pop of color. Then you have Birch, which is your warm toned camel brown. Then you have your Noir, which is your matte black, which is easy to use, and it is of good quality, not patchy, and very blendable. Then you have Slate, which is your cool gray tone, medium gray. You can blend out with it in the socket of your eye, but you can also use it as an outer corner color. So these are going to be your mattes. And then you have a few shimmers, your cinder, your teak, your rose quartz, your ember, and you have a bit of a chunkier texture, steampunk, pearl, and especially cyborg. Cyborg is probably the chunkiest glitter, but it's also the most tactful. It's this probably the most interesting shade in the bunch, and it is a lilac toned silver, which is my absolute favorite. So, you know, the brow bone, I go in with fresh. The crease work, I go in with birch or twig, sometimes slate if I want a lot of gray there. Outer corner work, slate, dystopian, noir, a pop of color, bloom, and then all over the lid, if you want something light, you can go in with pearl, which is a champagne shimmer, or cyborg, which is that lilac toned silver, which is really cool. And you have a few medium toned colors like cinder, teak, steampunk, and rose quartz that can go all over the lid or go into a daytime smoky. You also have ember, which is a slightly darker color. You can also do a daytime smoky shimmer all over the lid or outer corner if you like a shimmer in the outer corner. So actually, this is a very versatile palette. I'm super impressed with the kinds of shades they included and the mix of them. I've been able to come up with so many different looks. It's super easy to combine these with each other. Virtually all of them will combine with one another. You can pick any 3 colors and they will work together. If you're picking from different categories, for instance, you're picking your crease shade, you have 2 options, one cooler tone, one warmer toned. You have some options for outer crease work. You have a lot of options for shimmers, which is what is going to change up your look day to day quite a lot. And I did find it really useful enough that I was super able to wear it day to day. And I'm including a lot of different looks here that I did and just happened to hit record button on. But there's unlimited options, well, limited by mathematics, but generally so many different options for any occasion. So that's why I really recommend the palette, because I think this one is going to work for basically any skin tone and for any occasion. It is that versatile.
Perfect.
Another thing that I do enjoy is the fact that it does come with a brush that is usable. Thank you, Anastasia. Some beauty gurus, so to say, poo-pooed this brush. I think it's a good brush. I'm actually reaching for it every time I use the palette. I think it's a really nice brush. Even when I'm done with the palette, I'll keep the brush, which is a testament to how good it is. It does have a fluffy side, which I use the same way I use the MAC 217, which is my favorite blending brush. This is not worse than that at all. It does blend very nicely. It's soft enough, but it's hard enough to pick up and distribute the product, as well as blending. You don't want a brush that is so soft that it doesn't blend. This one's a multi-purpose brush. I apply and blend with the same one, and it works super well. And the other one is a densely packed petal brush, which means that it is very easy to pack on the shimmers, which are in abundance in this particular palette. You can definitely use your finger for more impact, or if you want to not have shimmer all over your finger, then you can definitely use the paddle brush, and it works really well. I have not had to wet my brush for application of any of these shades. They apply full force. They're crazy reflective. If you like a really subtle look, this is not going to be a palette for you. If you're somebody who likes shadows that are very firmly pressed and won't have any kick up. This is not for you. And if you are a fan of supernatural looks, it is not for you. If you are like me and like to play with your makeup and experiment and enjoy a good selection of colors, this palette is for you. This is from, I can't really think of any other restrictions that I would put on this palette. I think it's going to be so good for anybody who can pick it up if you enjoy a good shimmer, because there are definitely some chunky shimmers in here. Unfortunately, the shadows are only good for 18 months. Again, Anastasia shadows, I heard, don't live very long. So another thing that I would recommend is purchase this palette if you're in need of a palette and you're going to use it a lot. I anticipate very heavy use with this particular product because I really enjoy it and it's such an easy go-to for me. Great palette, totally recommend it. I think you will enjoy it. I think anybody who will purchase this will enjoy this tremendously. I think it's just a well thought out product. And most certainly a very talented set of eyes had selected the colors, because it is probably the best color selection that I've seen Anastasia come up with in a really long period of time, and very, very wearable. It's nice that they called it sultry, and I can see where this is coming from. It's cooler toned and quite impactful shimmers in here. But honestly, you can do any kind of a basic look out of this one and it'll be great. The quality of the shadows is A+. I totally think that this is worth your attention if you're on a lookout for a palette. Of course, given that I don't promote ultra serious consumerism, and I would never want to push anybody to purchase anything. It's absolutely not a necessity. But if you are looking for a palette that is a workhorse and will do a lot for you, I think Sultry is probably the best, or at least one of the best on the market right now, unless you are a person like myself who's very, very interested in cleaner beauty. And I would love for a cleaner brand to come up with a shadow impact that is similar to Anastasia. That would be fantastic. I would love to see that. I think that would be definitely a purchase from me if that happens. That's it for today. Let me know, have you used other Anastasia shadows and have you enjoyed them? Have you used the Sultry palette, and do you agree with me on the points that I have made? Otherwise, that's the end of the video. See you guys later. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.